Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry. Today's video is going to be my preview and first impressions of the new Summon Showcase, which starts at reset tonight. So this Summon Showcase is called the Accursed Archives. It's named the same as the Facility event, so we'll have to see if that was a mistake or if that's a trend going forward, where these events and showcases have the same names. But we got a preview video this time on the English Twitter account, which is fairly rare. We usually get one on the Japanese account. So we're going to take a look at that first, and then we'll head over to the notices board in-game to go even more into detail. So here we go with the preview video. So one thing you'll see right away on this showcase is that there are 2 5-star adventurers who are brand new. So this kind of bucks a trend that I tried to explain in my 5 tips for summoning. But here we go with the first 5-star being Heinwald, a shadow healer. That is only the 3rd shadow healer. Has an attacking skill, Call of Chaos, which also heals. And then Abyssal Connection, which increases the team's strength and powers up that Call of Chaos. The animation on Call of Chaos looks really sweet. Then we have Curran. Curran is a 5-star Shadow Axe, an attack type, with the first skill that can debuff enemy defense, which is always powerful. Love the animation on that as well. And then a second skill, which is a pretty straightforward attack. It looks really similar to an attacking skill that's found on the 5-star Axe. Now for dragons, we get Nyarlathotep. And Nyarlathotep is a Shadow Dragon, which enhances strength, but at a threshold we haven't seen before. And then they have a second skill, or second ability rather, which provides a 1-use shield. The skill is just a straightforward attack. It looks pretty similar to Juggernaut, although a little bit more spinning and a little bit longer range it looks like. Probably about even in the end. Then we have a Wyrmprint. So instead of 2 5-star Wyrmprints, we have a 5-star Adventurer this time, but the 1 5-star Wyrmprint is the Fleeting Girl, Last Recovery and Shield Prep. And then at 4-star, with this really great artwork, First Rate Hospitality. Good abilities, we'll get into them. Strength double buff and HP 70% equals strength. The Heretic's Laboratory at 3-star with Skill Haste and Arcane Tomes. And basically that is it for the preview. So that 4-star Wyrmprint with Strength double buff and HP of 70% equals strength looks like a solid combination of abilities. And I'll talk more about the 5-star items once we get into the game, because all of those are shown off there. So let's go ahead and switch over now. Alright, so we are back in the game, here to take a look at the actual preview we got, which goes into detail about the 5 stars. So you can see that this showcase is going to start on March 12th, basically at the time of reset. That is when you'll no longer have the showcase with Albert and Odetta on rate up, and it lasts until March 20th at reset. And so that means that afterward, we're going to have our lead up to the half anniversary. We're going to have those 3 new Void battles. A lot is happening on March 20th, and I would expect that we're also going to get Gala at that point, although it could come a little bit later in the month. Perhaps there's a story event or something like that to round out the month. But here we go. Let's get into these adventurers, and I'll talk about why I'm not too worried, even though there are 2 5-star adventurers here. So Heinwald is a 5-star Shadow Healer. So far we have Cleo and Edward as healers, with Cleo being free to everyone and a pretty solid healer. The thing about Heinwald is his kit seems to be as much focused on strength as it is on healing. So rather than having a pure healing skill in his first slot, he actually has an attacking skill which deals shadow damage to the target and nearby enemies, and restores HP to all allies. So we have to see the extent to which this is nerfed, the amount healed is nerfed, due to the fact that this also gets to deal damage. But it also heals based on how much damage is inflicted. That seems to be on top of the base level of healing. The recovery caps at 8% of their maximum HP. I think that's referring to the damage-based healing and not the total. But this is kind of nice to see. I think that some healers get hamstrung by the fact that they have attacking skills. But if they're able to pair those with healing, then we get a potentially more flexible type of unit. So I'm really hopeful for him and that his stats will be able to make that attack and heal combo work. It seems like his strength is okay. Healing attacks in general, the basic combo of staves, is pretty slow and so on, but I think this could actually have potential. Abyssal Connection, this activates Abyssal Connection for 10 seconds, during which the user's strength is increased by 20% and the Call of Chaos skill is powered up. Also increases the strength of nearby allies by 10%. So that is really solid. It's a fairly small buff compared to some dedicated buff bots like Elisan, for instance, but it is something, and if timed well, that could make a difference. It also hopefully lines up to where Abyssal Connection will be ready right as Call of Chaos is going to be charged, so that you can for sure cast your Call of Chaos while Abyssal Connection is active. Overall, I'm hopeful about Heinwald. It is helpful for the most part for healers to have multiple healing skills, and he doesn't have that. So I think that his Call of Chaos will need to heal for a decent amount for him to really succeed as a dedicated healer. Cleo doesn't have 2 healing skills either, but she does have a defensive buff, and her first skill is dedicated purely to healing. For abilities, Heinwald has extra skill damage, a lot of extra skill damage when their HP is above 70%, which should be pretty easy to maintain with his healing. Paralysis res of 100%. So all of you out there who said this would probably be a paralysis focused event, you were right, and I think part of that is, as many of you pointed out, for newer players that's much more forgiving potentially than a blind focused event, where you really need some specific adventurers to actually take that on. You already get to start the game with a paralysis res adventurer in Cleo, so that should make this a little bit easier for most people. And skill prep of 100%, which is also very good on a healer, and especially one who has this 1-2 combo with his moves. So I'm very hopeful of Heinwald. One thing to note is that 100% skill prep does mean he could use the 3-star Shadow Staff as well to give himself an immediate defensive buff. So there is some possibility there at the very least for some intrigue and some shenanigans. I think he's cool. I think Cleo was already great though, so I'm not sure how much you really need this. But for high dragons, where even the DPS on Thaniel can make a difference in High Brunhilde with a Poseidon-wielding Thaniel, then this could actually be very potent for something in the future like High Jupiter with the amount of damage this guy can possibly deal. Next we have Curran, who is also a 5-star adventurer, this time a Shadow Axe and an attack type. Really massive strength stat, basically the 3rd highest in the game at this point, so really cool to see they are letting him have that high of a strength. Now, the reason I'm not worried that there are 2 5-stars here is it seems that it's taken away from the Wormprint slot. So normally we'd get 2 Wormprints previewed, but this time we only got 1. And I think that means that basically instead of 2 Wormprints, they decided to just put another adventure because the devs know that the pool of 5-star Shadow Adventurers has been lacking. There's only really been Nefaria there. So I think that's their logic, and I don't think that 4-star Adventurers won't appear on this showcase. I think the reason they're not in the preview is it'll be an existing 4-star Adventurer, like someone like Orion perhaps, somebody who is a Shadow Element probably and has Paralysis Res, although they could also do an off-element 4-star Adventurer. So that is what I'm thinking, that the 4 stars or the 4-star and 3-star of the adventurers will just be old units. They won't be brand new. But if there's someone you're still interested in, hopefully you can still target them. We'll know that for sure tomorrow, of course. But as for Curran, pretty straightforward kit. 2 attacking skills, one of them debuffs enemy defense. Great for an attacker. Defense co-ability of plus 15%. It's turned out that the 15% HP on Xainfried is super useful in the endgame, so having these defense and HP co-abilities that go up to 15% are actually quite relevant. So as much as Sazanka is very good, Curran is also likely going to be very good. Overdrive Punisher of 13%, that is also a great ability because for the most part against harder bosses, they're in overdrive a lot longer than they're in a break state. So Overdrive Punisher adds a lot to your damage. Paralysis res of 100% is great. Blast offense of 50%, that's okay. that could be relevant in a high dragon trial. You take an initial blast that's unavoidable, you get to activate this and deal some damage right away, so that is kind of relevant, although a more persistent ability would have probably been a little better. But I think just based on stats, having 2 attacking skills, especially in a 2 Wyrmprint world where 1 Wyrmprint can just be dedicated to skill damage on this guy, this is going to be a very powerful adventurer. And hopefully with these 2 new 5-stars, it means that we'll get an expansion to the 5-star summon tickets, and maybe we'll even get one for free during the half anniversary. That's kind of one of my hopes that's a little bit baseless, but I could see them doing that. It's been a while since we've gotten a free 5-star ticket, and giving one out would be a good way to couple the news that they were expanding the pool. Now we get into the dragon, Nyarlathotep, and this dragon definitely has a Lovecraftian vibe, kind of like a Cthulhu monster type of dragon. I say all of that with very little knowledge of the source material, so please forgive me if that's totally wrong, but that's the feeling I get from this monster of a dragon. Now, as far as abilities go, this is a pretty weird setup. HP 30% equals strength plus 50%. As long as your HP is 30% or above and equip Shadow to an adventurer, will have a 50% strength increase. So 50% strength is what we've seen on a Max Unbound Gilgamesh, as well as a Max Unbound Prometheus. So that is a good amount of strength, but when your HP is 30% or above only, that could be a fairly costly condition, because when your HP falls below 30%, you are going to be dealing a lot less damage. That is a big drop in your extra strength. That is offset somewhat by this last bulwark too, which grants the user a 1-use shield that nullifies damage less than 60% of their max HP when their HP drops to 30%. So basically, when you hit that cutoff, you'll get that shield, but all of a sudden you'll start doing a lot less damage. Really, the one scenario I can think of where this would be good is in these endgame fights. They're often back-to-back unavoidable moves. Sometimes that first move might take you to 30% HP. And if you don't have a healer who's ready, this last bulwark basically could protect you from the second unavoidable move, because 60% is a pretty high amount to actually block. Otherwise, if you're just going below 30% HP and getting a shield at a random time, that to me does not seem very good, especially because you're already fighting at a disadvantage at that point, because your HP is 30% or below, and that means that you're not getting that extra strength boost. So I really don't like this dragon. I think Marishi 10 is much better. There are some interesting uses perhaps with Last Bulwark, but in my view, only if you can really exploit it and really time it and plan it. If it's just a random shield, 1-use shield, it could just prevent like a very small attack and then be kind of wasted. And I think you really need a healer in your composition if you want to rely on this. I mean, you can dodge. It's not too hard to keep your HP above 30% in most fights, but for endgame fights, I am not crazy about this. It'll depend on the mechanics and whether that last bulwark can actually make a difference. Finally, the 5-star Wyrmprint that we have is called the Fleeting Girl. It seems to be much more focused on HP, and it's more defensive in nature. Last Recovery 3 grants an HP regen buff for 20 seconds when HP drops to 30%. That is probably going to be a large amount since it's 3. And Shield Prep 2 gives you a 20% shield when you start a quest. It's a 1-use shield, so I'm not crazy about this Wyrmprint either. Last Recovery is good though. That is a nice ability to have when you're grinding out content. It makes it so if you're auto-battling, your adventurers can take some punishment and they'll be able to persist despite that. The Shield Prep I'm less crazy about. I like shields in this game, but I like repetitive use shields. I think 1-use at the start of a quest, that could help you, but it may not be in that clutch moment where you really need it. And if you're in a high dragon fight, it's just going to get destroyed immediately. So that's my feelings toward this. I will comment on Forbidden Knowledge. Basically, if you haven't played a facility event before, there are 2 MacGuffins or 2 things that you'll slowly collect. One of them is primarily used to level up your facility, And the other one, this Forbidden Knowledge, is basically a milestone type of reward where you slowly collect up to 1 million of these, and at the end of the event, by getting up to that many, you unlock, along the way really, you unlock everything up to that milestone. So this will make your grind faster, but just for future reference, it's not necessary. You can clear out the event without actually pulling and getting these. All of the worm prints, when a facility event rolls around, have these types of abilities, and I'll show you the facility event preview. So these arcane tomes are the other MacGuffin, or the other thing you'll collect. Where we saw on that 3-star worm print, it's going to give you an extra collection rate for those in that preview video, and those are used to level up your facility, as well as used in the treasure trade area of the event. So if you've never tried those before, basically the facility events, when it starts off, you really want to focus on leveling up your facility. Try to get that up to level 30 as soon as you can, because it's going to enhance the damage you do to monsters and fiends in that event context. That is your first priority. You don't want to spend Wormite to level it up faster or do that faster, but you just want to start early on it so that by midway through the event, you have everything in place and you can kind of grind out the rest of the event at your leisure. That's my advice for the facility event if you're brand new to it. And those are my thoughts on the new preview we got of the Summon Showcase. So definitely let me know what you think, what your impressions are of the showcase. I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments below. For me, since I already have Orion, Cleo, Ieyasu, Sazanka, Botan, I already have a lot of Paralysis Res characters, this is going to be a skip for me, but I hope that some of you out there who are excited to summon on this are able to do so. One last thing I'll say, since you may not see my review video before you actually pull, before you decide to summon, go here to appearance rates, because even though it's not been announced, this is where you will see which 4 stars have that rate up. So I do think a 4-star and possibly a 3-star or 2 4-star adventurers will get a rate up, probably some shadow ones, maybe some off element, but you're going to want to go here to actually check what has been given a rate up, because it's not just what they announce. What they announce is just what's brand new. But definitely let me know, like I said, what you think. With that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.